This is the Mitch Albom Show on News Talk 760 WJR.
I want to talk about vaccines for COVID-19 and the whole issue of them. Dr. Daniel Havlichek, who's been with us before, Michigan State University Department of Medicine, Division of Infectious Diseases, joins us again. Doctor, thank you for coming on with us again.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.
So we want to focus on the vaccine question for a moment here. So everyone's talking about vaccine. I've read up quite a bit on this, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to ask you a question. Normally, they say with a new virus, and the coronavirus was called novel because it's new, our record for getting a vaccine that we trust is 4 years. Everybody keeps talking about January. That's what we hear from the government. Is that feasible? And what has to change from how we normally go about getting a vaccine to this methodology in order to meet that kind of a timetable?
Yeah, that's a great question. Whether or not it's feasible or not, we'll find out. But I think the things that have changed over the last few years are we do have animal vaccines for coronavirus, as I understand it, and so we've got a bit of a head start on that. We also have some history with the SARS coronavirus and what's called the MERS coronavirus, that people have been kind of working on vaccines for those two viral infections. And so we have kind of a head start that way. So I don't know that we're really starting from ground zero on this one. I think the technology has also improved, and they're doing things that are much, much faster with recombinant DNA technology and those kind of things. So that gives us a little bit of a head start. Once you get to that point, though, you've got to do the clinical trials, and that's going to take quite a while. I honestly think the date that you mentioned before is very optimistic.
Yeah, I do too. And from everything I've read, the order of how this goes, it doesn't take that long to develop a vaccine. We keep hearing that phrase, develop a vaccine. The researchers are close to developing a vaccine. But developing a vaccine, from what I understand, is a matter of months. It's then testing it and making sure that it works and not rushing it, because we remember, what was it? Was it the polio vaccine? What was it, Jonas Salk's thing, where they kind of rushed it out after they had it, and they ended up killing some people because they gave a bad batch of it out there. So tell me, what's the part that slows it down?
Well, it's hard to put a simple handle on that one. The side effects have to be clearly defined. The efficacy then has to be defined. And when we have, injections, or when we're injecting foreign proteins, if you will, into a person, there's always a chance that they'll have an enhanced reaction to that might also cross over into something that looks similar. And that's what we're always kind of concerned about. So if you stimulate the virus or the body's immune system and it recognizes something similar to the virus, but it's not the virus, say it's part of your kidney, and then all of a sudden the body starts attacking the kidney, then you're in a very, very bad place. So you have to go about this very slowly in the beginning to make sure the safety of the vaccine is there. So
how do you get people who want to volunteer for this? I mean, it seems like with all these various vaccines, you need human subjects eventually to try this, right?
Absolutely. And there's animal models. I think at this point they've been able to show the virus in cats and some other mammals. So they'll be doing some animal studies with this, and then ask for human volunteers. And frankly, the volunteers for COVID experiments have been remarkable. The people who are willing to try things, they're there for us. And so I think they'd be willing to try vaccines in earlier phases.
Now, once a vaccine, somebody somewhere, there's 100 of these being tried around the world, I guess, and somebody somewhere is going to say, hey, bingo, we think we got one. But everybody acts as if the day that is done is the day that we can go out and party. I have to think that just because someone has figured out what looks to be an effective vaccine, then there's the manufacture of it, and the whole world is waiting for it. I mean, you've got billions of people who want to get vaccinated. So how does that work? How long does it take to ramp up manufacturing? Who gets it first? Is it a nationalistic thing? Is it the country who invented it has first dibs on it? How does that all work?
Well, I don't think there are any rules for that. Obviously, the companies that have, or the countries that have money are going to be able to purchase it. There's obviously going to be a lot of pressure, though, on the vaccine manufacturer to supply it to those companies or those countries that need it, especially if it's a developing country that doesn't have much in the way of resources. So it's going to be a big balancing act. Frankly, I'm hoping that if social distancing keeps kicking in and we keep dropping the numbers, that maybe it'll be a bit of a moot point by 2021.
Well, is that a possibility on the table? We sure would love to hear that. We keep hearing that no matter what we're doing, come the fall and winter, we're going to get slapped again, and et cetera, et cetera. But is there some sliver of optimism?
Well, I'm always optimistic. I don't, I see the numbers coming down, certainly in the state of Michigan, on a slow but steady basis. The numbers from WHO for the United States are coming down, again, slower, but on a steady basis. The places where I'm most concerned are developing countries where, there's going to be difficulty in social distancing, perhaps, masks, perhaps, healthcare, so that when they do get sick, the individuals are not going to have appropriate health care. So those are going to be the countries where I think it is the biggest problem next. Honestly, I am going to be optimistic that Michigan is going to continue to see drops and that by 2021 we'll have, I wouldn't call it waves, I would call it periodic brush fires. And so we'll, periodically just have a pocket here or a pocket there that I hope, and again, nobody has any, guarantee on the future, but I would hope that these brush fires that would come up would be able to be monitored, surveyed, and really taken care of very efficiently.
But does that presume certain things? Because the numbers that you're pointing to that are giving you optimism are happening in a very, very unusual social experiment time where people are actually generally following the rules, staying inside, overly socially distancing, staying at home. And clearly by mid-2021, nothing could sustain for that long living this way. We can't in this state nor in this country continue to live this shut down. So as we open up and start moving about, we all keep hearing, well, it's likely that numbers are going to go up. Is it almost like being on a teeter-totter? Like, well, okay, we'll let the numbers go up so much on that side as long as it doesn't get too heavy on the other side, and we're essentially living with an acceptable amount of losses and deaths and sicknesses until such time as we get medicine or a vaccine?
Yeah, and I'll say, all predictions based on assumptions, and so the people that are my assumptions are my assumptions. The people that are making assumptions of a wave are making assumptions. You may be 100% right, though, that we have to start talking about what are acceptable losses, if you will, or what's an acceptable rate of COVID disease. And maybe vaccine is the wrong thing to be focusing on. I mean, oral agents that can slow the virus growth and allow the body's immune system to get rid of it on its own, that might be the best way to go.
Right.
Things like we have for HIV and herpes and, kind of all those other viral infections.
I've heard that the chances are, especially if the vaccine gets dragged out, the chances of developing a medication for those people who get it that will keep you from dying and, eventually get rid of it is actually a much faster track than the ultimate vaccine, which will prevent you from getting it in the first place. Is that accurate?
I think so. Yeah, the infrastructure is basically set up for, creating a medication or a drug, running a trial, proving that it works, and going home, basically. vaccines are more litigious, more difficult to prove, and you can't do controlled trials. This is a whole issue of, can you give somebody coronavirus who you got the vaccine? Well, you can't really do that ethically. But if somebody's sick with coronavirus,
right,
you can give them the medicine,
right,
and then you can say, well, did they get better or not? And so there's an ethical crossroads there that people who are using vaccines, they can't just really test it, quote unquote, test it on humans. You can do that with cats or other animals,
right,
but you can't really do that with people.
And are as many people working on trying to find a medication to cure this as there are organizations trying to find vaccines?
Oh, at least. I would say at least. Well, one was recently approved by the FDA, and that was last week, a medication called remdesivir. And even though it didn't really look very good in my eyes, it did seem to improve morbidity of the patient, maybe decrease length of stay, decrease pressure on the healthcare system in the United States. If you could cut down length of stay by 3 days by every patient, and that's basically about all it showed. It didn't show any change in survival that we can see. But if you can do that, that's still going to be a plus for the United States health system.
And that was only the first swing. Hopefully there are many, many
and
more
that's
to
the
come.
first swing.
Yeah. Dr. Havlichek, I so appreciate you spending time with us. We always learn a lot when you come on, and thank you. I look forward to speaking with you again.
Hey, been my pleasure. Anytime.
Dr. Daniel
Bye-bye.
Havlichek, Michigan State University, Department of Medicine, Division of Infectious Diseases, back with more on 760 WJR.